Westcast
Network. Now things will start kicking ass, just like it said at the beginning of the program.
Man of the hour, tower of power, too sweet to be sour.
Sending your ass on the jabroni jet to the other side of the territory, brother.
The Alabama Hammer.
Nightmares on the best part of my day. The goods from the wood.
Hot damn.
Welcome to The Goods from the Woods. My name is Rivers Langley.
Oh, it's my turn. Oh,
It's your turn.
Riley.
This is a good night, man of the hour, tower of power, too sweet to be sour, baby.
And today we're taking you back. It's classic gaming with our guest.
David Cope, guys.
David
Live
Cope.
at Disgraceland.
That's right.
Graceland.
My experience with gaming as a child, I got an NES later. My first gaming system was Christmas 1993, Sega Genesis.
Sega for the 90s. The new generation. New generation system, new generation games, and a new generation of value. They're all part of the Sega generation for the 90s. The Sega generation begins with the 16-bit technology of Genesis, delivering twice the power and twice the challenge for twice the fun.
I feel like I might be the Sega Genesis representative because I feel a very heavy Nintendo vibe in the air, unless I'm mistaken.
Are all of our first systems Nintendos?
Yeah, my first system was a Nintendo. I was playing like simple little games on my dad's like old Apple computer.
Okay.
But no, yeah, the system was a Nintendo.
My first was actually Atari 7800.
Don Mallard, captain of the U.S. video game team.
When I'm not going for high scores in the arcades, I'm home playing games on my Atari 7800. As an expert, I like the 7800 because there are great arcade hits like Mario Brothers and Donkey Kong Jr. And the 7800 plays all the 2600 games. As a consumer, I like the 7800 because most games cost under $20.
The Atari 7800, the choice of the experts.
It wasn't the one from the early 80s that everybody had back then, the 2600 that had like Pac-Man and
That's
all
what
that.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, it was one that came out around contemporaneous to when the 8-bit Nintendo came out. And it had really good translations of some of the arcade games. Like it had one of the best Miss Pac-Mans for home and one of the best Galagos for home.
Was that the one that had the Journey game on it?
I actually have the the Atari Journey game at home, so I think that was 2600, not
I can't believe
7800.
they made a video game about Journey.
Data 8 presents the world's first rock video game, Journey Escape. The concert's over. Now you must help each member of Journey escape through mobs of love-crazed groupies, shifty-eyed promoters,
I can get you the forest.
and sneaky photographers.
I said no pitch. Move.
Find your roadies and manager.
You've got 10 minutes.
And run for the escape vehicle and live to rock another day. Journey Escape for the Atari 2600 from Data Age.
There was an arcade version, too.
Really?
What was it again? Refresh me on Journey. What?
You played as Steve Perry, and all the other, and mind you, all the heads were semi-realistic, so it was like stick figures.
It was a digitized head put on like a little
But it
little
looked
body.
It looked like little thumbnails that they cut out of a newspaper, and they just put in there. They were black and white, and you played as Steve Perry, and all the members of Journey, Neil Schon, Jonathan Cain, the other members got kidnapped by aliens, and you had to save the other members of the band. And when you won, you performed a fantastic intergalactic concert for the Milky Way State Fair.
So you
Journey.
defeated Journey. You defeated the game.
Yeah, I did.
So, wait. So Steve Perry defeats the aliens.
Yes.
And then, just as an extra, spit in the eye, performs on their soil.
Yeah.
It's like the way, like we take over a country and then we have our USO shows.
It
on
was
top
a
of it.
victory celebration.
Yeah,
the triumph.
In the
triumph, if you
smoking
will.
ruins of a society.
God, I'm trying to remember.
What was
it was
the
like
song it
bleeps
played at
and
the end?
bloops.
Was it? No, it wasn't Separate Ways.
No, it was from the Journey Escape album.
Okay.
So yeah. It was
Oh, that
something
was the
from-
game's name. It was
Yeah,
actually called Journey Escape.
Escape.
Yeah.
Escape from what you don't know until you play and realize you're escaping from aliens.
One really interesting thing that's not happening anymore, but I forget just how important it was like you bought a Genesis craving Altered Beasts from the arcade. So like the arcade was this place where you went to go find awesome games, and then you got it on the console and you could play it. It was like this rush to know that like you had Altered Beasts. And then there was also this like fantasy thing where like I think like one really like fantastical thing you would think about as a kid is like having an arcade thing in your home. Like the joystick, like that would just be out of control.
Yeah, well, like ultimately the thing you wanted, and there was always one kid who had, you know, either a pinball machine or like an old like Pac-Man system in his basement. Like that was the ultimate thing.
That was it.
So yeah, Genesis or NES or pick your thing was just like a slightly cheaper version of having that.
Man,
But Altered Beast was too easy though, because if you paused any of the bosses for 30 seconds, you could just get through them without having to beat them.
oh, I didn't know that.
Remember that shit?
I didn't know that was like a cheat.
Yeah. Rise from your
But
grave.
You would pause.
You'd pause when you get to the bosses.
Yeah.
And if you pause for 30 seconds, the boss would just blow up when you unpause it. You can get by him. So you could beat that game in one sitting real easy.
Did you guys have any of you ever play Mega Man?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you
I have all 6 of them.
the cheat in the
For
very
NES.
first Mega Man? Did you find the first time that you played Inverse Electric Man, it was like really hard? Did you ever have a really hard time defeating Electric Man?
I thought that whole first Mega Man was way too hard.
Yeah, it was.
Especially the flame guy with all the
That's the only one
blocks.
that I never...
Yeah.
I think that. Yeah, that was hard. I think that was Ice. I think that was Iceman.
I thought it was the fire guy. It looked like a Zippo
It might
lighter.
have been both. Those
But
blocks.
that was Heat Man.
Well, there was a heat guy in the first 2 games, I think.
But anyway, if you defeated, I had to look. I forget how I figured it out because there was no internet. But I think I read in Nintendo Power or something because I couldn't defeat Electric Man. Same kind of deal where like, no, I'm sorry, I'm gonna rephrase. I couldn't defeat Iceman, but if you go defeat Electric Man, you get his power. Then you go to Iceman, and then the waves are like big and thick. And then as you hit, you press pause, and then you unpause it and hit pause again, and you rapid fire it, and it hits him several times as the wave passes through him.
Oh,
Did you guys ever do that or
No,
anything?
I didn't know that one.
That
This is
really
like
helped things out.
this is like actual game tips here. Like remember them 900 number hotlines that wanted you to call back in the day? This is just as good.
Gaming online.
Call Hot Hints for the best Nintendo strategies.
Oh, I give up. Don't give up. Call 1-900-HOT-HINTS and supercharge your game.
Cool. I can select all my favorite games.
There's hundreds of action-packed hints full of secret passwords on all the latest Nintendo games.
Hot Hints is fast, fun, and it's $1.65 a minute. Now I have the power.
Ask your parents before calling.
Were you finding this stuff out with Nintendo Power? That was such a huge thing. And such a pleasure to get every month. I don't know if you guys got it or not.
I didn't subscribe, but I used to get them like secondhand from friends. I used to like EGM. Remember that Electronic Gaming Monthly?
Okay, I do remember that. I always remember getting into that later as in like a teenager even more and like seeing it, but...
Oh yeah, because they had all the fatality codes for Mortal Kombat and all that kind of shit.
But yeah, I'm sure there was some kid out there whose parents wouldn't let him have Nintendo Power. I just feel so bad for that kid.
Do you remember before there was Nintendo Power when they had that thing, the Nintendo Fun Club, which had a newsletter? The main legacy of that is, you remember in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, one of the things that Doc would say to you in between rounds was, join the Nintendo Fun Club.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was before they had Nintendo Power, they had like some kind of fan newsletter like that.
In-game advertising like that?
Yes.
Like the Blades of Steel has that, where it's like they have the things in between the second and third period of Blades of Steel, which was like the hockey game that had the little blades of steel, and all the players look like ballerinas. It was really weird, but like they'd have this thing where it's like a little ad for Contra or other games, and it's like it would say like impress your friends. Or make your friends jealous.
Yeah,
they really went for that psychological edge.
Yeah, there was actually a few games, mostly later period ones, that had ads in them. You remember that? Like in the Ninja Turtles arcade game, the second Turtles game, that was the translation of the arcade game.
They had the ad for
Pizza Hut. Yeah. And there was a terrible like George Foreman boxing game or something that had ads for Doritos in it.
Well, of course they had ads for Doritos.
Well, this is before the grill, you understand?
George Foreman era.
I have kind of a semi-adorable arcade TMNT story.
Okay.
When that game hit the arcade, I mean, that game dominated.
Oh,
Am I
it
right?
did, yeah.
Shit.
It was like there
Hot
was never
shit.
anything like that before.
There's a line all the way to the food court. Like, for
There we
real.
go.
Yeah.
It's like, was that why it was so hot? Because there just wasn't anything. That's just
No,
a
the
just 'cause
Turtles
it was Ninja
license
Turtle
was so
licensing.
red hot at the time,
Yeah.
and the game was actually fun, and looked
yeah.
a lot like the characters on a cartoon.
It was just good.
So everybody wanted to play it.
I just had a classic. I don't know what you want to call it, just Americana Wonder Years moment, whatever you want to call it. But I was at Rainbow Rollerland in suburban Tampa, and I mean, you can imagine all the energy is focused around this game. And I finally get my chance to get up there. So I'm like one of 4 dudes playing this game. During one of these like glory moments where I have a good move, or I just have a good sequence, I'm having a great time, I'm winning, something good happens, whatever. And I just let out like a battle roar that included a lot of curse words. And I was just feeling great. But it was just one of these things where I just let out, I just said something like, fucking shit, yeah, whatever, I screamed it. And then hilariously, I turn around and my mom was like right here. And that whole time, I don't know, she was like, I couldn't believe how close she was standing behind me. And I don't think I got in much trouble because she just knew I was caught up in a moment.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm ever going to forget that memory because it's got associated with it the terror and the shock of like having your mom right, and just all your friends are right there. It was just absolutely insane.
Should have just said cowabunga.
Yeah, I did it.
Would have saved a lot of trouble.
I just screamed curses. But yeah, when that game showed up, oh my god!
I had a friend that we had a NES at college, and we would play it incessantly. We would play that incessantly, and the guys that had the foot soldiers that had the sledgehammers.
Yeah,
he told me that when he was a kid, he used to call them the broom guys because they looked like they had push brooms. And from this point on, like if I play that game, like I'll get bored and I'll play it online because they have those emulator, like they put it on Flash or Java or something like that. And I'll just see, I'm like, that's the broom guys.
That's the broom guys.
Wow, they have all that online. I forgot about that. Yeah, you can totally go play those games.
Yeah.
Well, people got their own names for a lot of them. I remember a friend of mine would call the Koopa, the turtles in Super Mario Brothers, the duck, because that's what he thought it was.
That they were ducks?
The duck.
The turtles were the ducks?
The duck. Well, don't forget, look at the graphics in the first game. He doesn't look terribly turtle-like. He kind of has a beak and everything.
That's true. Yeah.
And he's yellow.
See, my thing with Nintendo, like I said, I got the system later, but my first system was in 1993. I think I probably got an NES the next year, but it wasn't new because Super Nintendo was already out at that point. I got the original Nintendo because my mom, she's an antique dealer in addition to being a teacher at the time, so she goes to every yard sale on Saturday mornings, like to this day. 2013 still goes to every yard sale in Auburn, Alabama on a Saturday morning. And so as a result, my whole childhood is just filled with like mom would come home Saturday with some weird ass shit that she got for me, which was really awesome. And one day she came home with a shoebox with the original Nintendo in it. But at this point, like it was kind of hard to get new NES games because the Super Nintendo had just completely eclipsed it. So I was just stuck with like the 10 games that came in the box, which were Mario 3, which is great. Mario 1 with the Duck Hunt attachment, also great, had the gun, and then just a weird, collection of shit. And the one I was super stoked about that was the biggest disappointment was Friday the 13th.
Oh, that was terrible.
Oh, Lord. It had Jason on the front with an axe, and I was like, this looks fucking awesome. And then you play it. It's the most boring.
Well, you know why that was? There had been a computer game a few years earlier for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and there was one of them parent outcries because you played as Leatherface or something in it.
Yeah.
So when they came out with a Friday the 13th game, they made sure that you didn't play as Jason.
Yeah.
So instead, you just played as these kids, and you'd get lost because it was really easy to get lost in that
Kevin
game.
Bacon's character or something like that.
No, they were
and it wasn't the sex that you have in the movie either, which was disappointing.
The kids were all like, they were like spread legged and like kind of hunched down and just slid across the screen and
then you just go in one of them cabins, and occasionally Jason would show up.
Yeah, exactly. Like imagine the Silver Surfer, that pose where he's kind of hunched down and just sliding along.
Do you remember the Silver Surfer Nintendo game? It was the hardest goddamn thing you have ever played, and it came with there was a cheat code to make it even harder. Well, then the game was practically impossible to begin with.
Wait, there was a cheat code to make it harder?
Yeah, the game was impossible.
Wow.
You just get shot in like the first 3 seconds every time.
Let me drop a game that I think for some reason only resonates with me because it was my very first exposure to like RPG elements where like you're growing your character and stuff. But not many people seem to know about it. Faxanadu.
Oh yeah.
You play Faxanadu?
I have 400 Nintendo games.
Never heard of it.
Me and my
you guys
brother
don't?
I did not play
never heard of
Me and my
That's
brother
great.
beat that game back in like November.
So
You remember, you
No
go up
way.
the world tree, you remember?
Yeah,
And then there was
dude.
those later levels where everything was all foggy.
Well,
and
tragically, I cannot believe you know about this game. All right, that's great. The reason it hit me so hard because that's a classic platformer. Is that called a platformer? Am
misty.
I right?
It's like a platformer with sort of
With
RPG elements. Sometimes
I
they would call
remember
games like that adventure games.
I was a little kid playing it, and one of the first like spells you can buy is called Death, I think, or something. But the amount of money you need to buy it is like you need a lot.
Oh yeah.
And then I remember I started like slogging to get the money, like killing all these monsters.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm going to have to do this forever.
I
And then I did it. And then I finally got it. And I was like, totally worth it.
I remember my brother and his friend Cardo doing that back in the day. In fact, me and Frank even my brother had a name for when you have to do that. And we used to call it Gold in Elfland. Because if you remember the first Final Fantasy, there's a part where you're on Elfland and you have to get all this money up to get a certain sword or something. So you just have to keep slogging away forever and ever until you get enough gold to buy the sword. So whenever you got to do that in a game, and you had to do it a lot in Faxanadu.
Faxanadu, yeah.
We call it Golden
Is it
Elfland.
spelled like Xanadu with an X, but with F-A?
It was
Yeah.
FAX, yeah. We
Yeah.
used to call it Fax back in the day because even then the name was kind of silly.
But
Yeah.
did you? I always I just kind of played it for a little bit. For some reason I wasn't able to own the game. I remember I played it, I rented it, and then played it other people's. But I never owned it. Was it fun all the way through?
It was pretty good. There was parts that could get tedious, but it was in general it was worth the popcorn.
Did the magic spells get fun and like I know because you have your attack, but then you have these magic spells, right?
Yeah.
Were they?
I mainly remember the most difficult part of it was you would get lost. Because you'd have to find your way through that tree.
Yeah.
And sometimes there'd be different ways that you had to go, and that was what I remember could get frustrating.
Okay.
But at this point in life, we have so many games, and there's only so little time in life, so we'll use a map sometimes if we get stuck.
Just get through it.
And nowadays, of course, with the internet, you've got a cheat to any game
Yeah.
at any time. Whereas back in the day, you had to either go in the cafeteria and ask your friends, or get a Nintendo Power or Game Pro or one of them
Something
things.
like that.
Did you guys ever have a book?
Yeah.
Like they used to
Oh, yeah.
publish
Yeah.
books filled with passwords and cheats.
Yeah,
and
I
shit.
bought-
Compute's Guide to Nintendo, which would have a rating for parents in the back, which
Yeah.
games were too violent, shit
If-
like that.
If I'm not mistaken, Game Genie, before it was a program, published books. Like I feel like I'm almost certain that I had a Game Genie book
I
in probably 1994.
Well,
I had one
back in the
book.
day, it came with a book. You remember it came with a code book for when you bought a Game Genie.
yeah.
Well, I bought a book, the official Nintendo. I forget what it was called, but it was the official Nintendo cheat guide, and they had a small amount of games, but it was very comprehensive. It was like the Mega Man's 1, 2, and 3, Mario's 1, 2, and 3, Zelda, Link, Castlevania 1, 2, and 3. And I remember I saved up my allowance for the $20 to buy it at Electronics Boutique in Valco Fashion Park
Yeah.
in Cupertino, California.
Wow.
I have that book. I
Yeah.
think you saw it once when you came by. It has Ninja Turtles in it,
Yeah,
too.
it does have Ninja Turtles in it, too.
I have that. I got
That
it.
first Ninja
for a
Turtles
dollar.
game was really fun, wasn't it?
That game was so damn hard. Me and Frank a few months ago used the book to try to beat it, and we still couldn't get past that third
That's like
stage.
the side, not the arcade one, but like that.
Yeah, the original one that was
Yeah.
had those sort of like I won't say RPG, but like adventure elements where you would go in and out of the sewer and you would switch
Yeah.
between turtles.
Yeah.
And there was the part where you would swim and defuse the bombs that
I
everybody
remember
remembers.
spending a lot of time on it.
It was very
good,
difficult.
It was fun.
It was impossible
Was
to
it
get past
hard?
that third level when they kidnapped Splinter. Could never get past that. Me and my brother even tried watching a walkthrough on YouTube, and we were still like, this is just too damn hard.
Wow.
So we've yet to beat that one.
Wow.
So what was you got the Sega first?
I got the Sega first, and the reason I got it was not even for Altered Beast. It was for the Jurassic Park game, which,
nice.
if you recall, the Super Nintendo Jurassic Park game is shit, and the Sega one is really fun, unless you're like me and got one of the weird. So, like, there was a certain batch of cartridges that were just faulty. Like, there was a part of a certain level that was literally impossible, that you had to use a password to get to the next part.
Wow.
It was called the Pump House, and it was just, 10 or 15 pipes, not in the movie at all, 10 or 15 pipes just stacked up, and they were all broken, and you were supposed to jump across at some point, and there was a Brontosaurus or a Brachiosaurus, what have you, in the middle.
Sauropod.
A sauropod sticking its neck out in between the broken pipes, and you were supposed to be able to jump on the dinosaur's head and then to the other side. But with mine, you just went right through the dinosaur and died, and it was fucking impossible.
Didn't you return it? That thing was probably under warranty.
Well, I wasn't, I was like, 6 or whatever, so I wasn't smart enough to be able to like, oh, this is a deficient game. It was like, this is just this is just my bad luck. It wasn't until years later I thought about it and like did a little bit of research, like, oh yeah, they made a later version of the same game where they fixed that.
Well, the whole thing with the Sega Jurassic Park was you could play as the dinosaur.
Exactly, you could play as the raptor, and that was always the best.
All-time favorite Genesis game?
All-time favorite? Jurassic Park Rampage Edition. Because
I sense a theme.
Because I could beat it. I could beat it today. If you brought a Sega Genesis in here and gave me that game, I could beat that game in 45 minutes. I could.
Awesome.
I'll do it as a challenge. It was so much fun.
Favorite?
Well, it's kind of an odd one, but Shadowrun, which was not even as good as the Super Nintendo Shadowrun, but I still thought it was the best game for Genesis.
Cyberpunk?
Yeah, it was that Cyberpunk. It was one of those RPGs that you would play pen and paper.
I actually played, keeping it legit here, I played pen and paper Shadowrun.
Yeah, it was like Blade Runner.
Yeah, I love that. I actually really love that. Steampunk right now has got the grasp on like what people are doing, like dressing up. I kind of feel like everyone's into steampunk.
Don't like steampunk.
I like Shadowrun. I like fucking Shadowrun.
Cyberpunk was badass.
I like cyberpunk shit.
Did you play the Super Nintendo one?
Did you ever listen to the Billy Idol album?
Cyberpunk?
Is that a real album?
Billy Idol kind of looked like a guy from Shadowrun.
It was his
1991 comeback.
Yeah,
attempt.
and it was pretty bad. It was like a concept album.
Favorite Genesis game?
That's very tough because I was a huge fan of NBA Jam. I cannot be beaten NBA Jam. Playing as the Miami Heat. Very unconventional pick, but Miami Heat, balanced. But mine was a sentimental favorite was Landstalker. Which was it was a RPG platform game where you played as an elf who was a treasure hunter, and his name was Nigel. And you went on this very long sort of journey to find the treasures of King Knoll. And I remember me and my dad playing that for months.
That's great. Your dad was into it?
Yeah. He was really into those.
I could never get to that.
He was really into those games that were adventure games. He was really into Zelda. He was into.
See, that's
into
great.
those
See,
games.
my dad had loved like Pac-Man and things like that, but never liked those later kind of games.
The puzzles and the riddles and all that stuff. And I remember one time I actually defeated it, and I feel to this day I feel horrible about it because I wanted. In hindsight, I would pause it and just wait the next day, but he was asleep and I beat it, and I woke him up at 11:30 and said, "Dad, I beat the game."
And he said, "Boy, you're a man now."
No, he kind of gave a grunt, and I think he was kind of sad that he wasn't there to beat it, because we would play it for hours.
See, with my
you should have saved right before
my
the
mom's
last
around.
guy.
Yeah.
Now, what does she think of it? She's totally cool?
She's totally cool because it was like a bonding moment, because my dad used to travel a lot for business when I was younger. So he was away, and it was like one of those things that it was just like a bonding moment. So she was like,
Wow.
I was around my mom a lot. So it was like one of those things where my dad was there and we would play this game and we would figure out. And I remember my dad, there was one part we didn't get, and my dad went to we would go to a mall. We would go down to like Jacksonville or something like that, and we'd go to a mall. And my dad would go right to the electronics store, like the game store, and try and ask the guy about the game Landstalker.
How to beat it.
And they would say, man, that game looks so good. I've never played it. And my dad actually called the manufacturer and asked for a hint about it, and he got the hint.
Not bad.
But wait, you defeated it.
I defeated it.
No, like when you talk about
and I defeated it. I bought it on Wii and I beat it. And I called my dad when I beat it. And I was like, "Hey, Dad, I beat Landstalker again."
Like when you talk about just a completely bygone era.
Yeah,
that's like the horse and buggy versus the car model.
Oh yeah, because
that will never be necessary.
Did
y'all ever do that?
I don't know if I ever called the manufacturer.
My mother at one point.
It's a brilliant game. If you have the Wii. Virtual console, download that game.
I might just
throw down the $5. Yeah. It is a fantastic game. It's really good.
I actually want to change my answer because while Rampage Edition was good, and the reason it was good compared to the first game, hold on, because it had nothing to do with the movie, and you were just killing people. Like there was dinosaurs and people, and for some reason the dinosaurs weren't eating the dinosaurs you were supposed to kill were not eating the people you were supposed to kill. They were just trying to eat you. Everybody was trying to kill you, and it was really fun. But my favorite, and it was also available on Super Nintendo, was Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Oh, that's a hard one to find,
dude. That game you can find it they have it on Wii on the Virtual Console.
Oh, is it?
Because a friend of mine got it. But that game I think I was at KB Toys or something, and they had just 2 games that were available, like 2 for $10, and one of them was Rocket Knight Adventure, which was this real piece of shit where you're a possum wearing
it was one of the many Sonic ripoffs.
Right, you're a
like Arrow the Acrobat. You remember that?
Right,
one?
yeah, or
Bubsy the Bobcat and all this shit like
Green Dog, the beach surfer dude.
Oh, Awesome Possum kicks Dr. Machino's butt.
Wait,
another one.
Wait, there were 2 possums because Rocket Knight. Rocket Knight was a possum.
Was he a possum? Or was armadillo?
Oh, maybe. Oh, you're right. He was an armadillo. Never mind. I was going to say that would be really stupid to have 2 possum games going on at once. But
there's only so many marsupials you can use.
That is like the most 1990s thing. Awesome Possum kicks Dr. Robotnik's
Machino's butt.
Sorry,
Dr. Robotnik is from Sonic.
Well, there was probably an environmental theme to it too, so that makes it even more 90s. All you need is the name Rad in there somewhere.
Yeah. I was a big my favorite, and again, there's just like these weird reasons why they're your favorite. But as like a big just classic RPG fan, Phantasy Star 2. Anyone play this game?
Yeah,
I remember
with
that
Alice.
What was it?
Alice. That was the heroine in it. Remember?
Yeah. And the bad guy, the big aliens. No, the big monster spell you get is Megid at the end. It's called Megid. Remember that?
I didn't beat it.
Okay. But Phantasy Star 2 was the first game for me, the first RPG where I don't know if you remember this at all. If this was a big moment, but like when the game comes on. And instead of 8-bit music, it's actually like 16-bit music sounds like it actually sounds like a hi-hat if there's a drum.
Yeah.
Like the music actually sounds a little bit like music.
Yeah, but for me, it was sort of the opposite because I like the 8-bit Calliope so much that the sort of Yanni sound that like the 16-bit Final Fantasies had.
But as a kid, you were thinking that?
I was a little bit older when that one came out. I'll say this. I was very impressed by the guitar sound they could get on the Super Nintendo Battle
slap bass.
Yeah. It was like the first time I had heard real music on a game, and I was like, oh my god.
I remember the slap bass on Streets of Rage at the beginning.
Oh,
was amazing.
You press the button and then boys show up in a car with a bazooka.
With the bazooka, yeah.
I wish they had that in real life.
Sounds like Benny Blades at a strip club.
Although the question is, like, it was like you would go along the Streets of Rage, fighting the people on said Streets of Rage, and then if you just needed help, you had a bailout, which was you could just press a button and a guy would show up in a car and shoot the people with a fucking rocket launcher. Which begs the question, why not just have the whole game in the car with the guy with the rocket launcher? Like, why does this guy...
Well, you have a limited amount of rockets that you can launch.
And, you've got to prove yourself.
Well, you also have a car you could run people over
It's
with,
like a coming of age ritual, and occasionally you might have a little Dukes at Machina like that. But I mean, you got to do it yourself if you want to really accomplish
Wasn't there a really
something.
popular game right around that time? I forget. I thought I loved it, but it had the word dudes in it, like tough dude.
Bad dudes.
Bad dude.
Arcade Arsenal. Bad Dudes for Nintendo. Bad Dudes. The forces of good have never been so bad. If you're bad enough, then you're good enough for Bad Dudes for Nintendo.
That's pretty fun. That was a good one. Was it not good?
Yeah, they would fight on top of a train and like a truck, like an 18-wheeler.
Yeah, you could throw a knife or something.
Yeah, and it was like a rip-off of Double Dragon, sort of.
But you rescued the president.
They were very recumbent.
Yeah, you rescued the president.
Yeah.
He had been kidnapped by ninjas.
Yeah.
And if you actually went to the... If you actually played the arcade one, the president at the end was an obvious caricature of Ronald Reagan.
On Bad Dudes?
Yeah, in the arcade one.
Okay.
On the home one, he just looked like a generic guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think the other thing was too. Wasn't there a sequel called Two Crude Dudes or something like that?
Oh, I don't know.
The Genesis or one of those.
Too crude. I was going to ask, maybe I'm blocking on it. It was huge. Did Double Dragon 2 ever come out in the arcade?
Oh.
Yeah. The home version is actually much better.
Okay. Was it? It was awesome? For some reason, all I can remember is Double Dragon.
2, I beat it like a couple of years ago in Portland one night when it had like a free arcade thing going. And it was one of those kind of games where after a while you're just pressing the same 2 buttons over and over again, so it got very monotonous.
In Double Dragon 1, did you find yourself just always using the elbow move?
Oh, I like the one where you grab their head and you give them that knee in the face.
Yeah, that's big.
That's my favorite, especially when you do it to the women.
You have to get so...
because it's just so wrong. It's just right.
Yeah, you could do it to the women.
It was the original Grand Theft Auto.
Well,
right?
the damn thing about that is, you remember at the end in the arcade, you fighting to save the girlfriend, and then you fight each other over her.
Yeah.
And I always kick my brother's ass in that part. Frank, if you're listening, you know I win every time at the end of that game.
That was intense.
It was 2 or 1. 2 or 1, the one with the Arnold Schwarzenegger looking guy.
I remember him in 2.
Okay, so my friend who also talked about the Broom Guys, him and his brother had weird names for all the characters of like various video games. And my 2 favorite ones were in that one. Him and his brother called the Arnold Schwarzenegger guy. It was Mr. Cheese and his candy machine.
Oh God.
And then the other one was in the game, and this was so ridiculous. Game Kung Fu. Do you guys ever play the game Kung Fu?
Yeah.
The side-scrolling
Rescue
one?
Where you're just like tons of ninjas are coming.
And they're just hugging you. They're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
hug you, and then there's the midget ones that try to hug you.
Yeah,
There's the
yeah. And you can
magician whose
duck.
head
Yeah.
floats around and shit.
And but like and you just get this weird sort of like conga line coming off of you with like short little midget guys very close.
It's like a gangbang or something.
It's very. But there was one character that was orange. It was a big muscular guy with the wife beater, and he was orange. And I don't know if he was supposed to be, African American or what. But his brother at age 3 used to call that character. He was playing it, and his brother, while he was playing against that boss, the 3rd level boss, went, George Bush.
Wow.
And he called. Apparently, he thought the character was named George Bush.
Why?
I don't. Kids have weird brains, man.
If they'd been playing Bad Dudes, at least it would have been close.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You got to save Sylvia from Mr. X. And George Bush is blocking him. But George Bush is actually a Werther's original colored guy.
You got the Hulk Hogan tan.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you have
Let me
Crispy Brown.
ask you if I play this, but I'm forgetting the name of it, but I want to know the name of it so bad. I put it as an arcade game. It's a driving game where it was almost kind of Tron looking in that it was like simple colors and you had a gun on your top of your car. But the big thing is that like every now and then a craft would come and fly over you and drop a gun on top of your car.
Oh yeah, that's Road Blasters.
Road Blasters.
I love that game.
Road Blasters.
Yeah. It was a Nintendo version, but it wasn't as good.
It couldn't have been as good.
You couldn't sit down in the cabinet like you didn't have that little cool steering wheel and all that shit.
Yeah. But I remember what fucked me up was there was a time element on that, right?
Yeah, there was. You had to get through the given stage in time, or then it would end. Yeah.
What the gun that it would drop, did it ever vary, or was it one kind of gun all the time?
I think there was more than one. I remember there was one they put in the roof and it would blow everything up. But,
Okay.
you remember you'd have to get those floating balls?
Have to
that
get
were
the floating
gas?
balls for
Yeah.
the gas. That was tough.
It was tough.
Did you play Road Blasters?
No.
I've never heard of that.
No, it even,
It
believe it or
sounds
not,
amazing.
it even had an action figure or a Matchbox car at least at one
I
point.
feel it was pretty popular for
Yeah.
its time. Because that ship flying over was such
That was
a big deal.
badass.
So Rivers, was the Sega a Christmas present, birthday present? What was
The
it?
Sega was a Christmas present, and I got the Jurassic Park game with it. It came with all of them came with Sonic 2. That was just what you got with Sonic 2.
I got Sonic 1
okay.
because I'm old.
I had that one too. And then
It was originally Altered Beast. You remember that?
No.
That's what came with it?
Yeah, that
I
was the
think that's what
original
came with
pack-in.
it. When I got it,
Yeah.
it was Altered Beast.
And then it was Sonic, and that took off huge. And then I guess
Yeah.
later on it was Sonic 2.
It was Sonic 2, and the other game that I got, I would have loved to have had Mortal Kombat. I didn't get Mortal Kombat that Christmas. I got Eternal Champions, which
knockoff?
Yeah, just this like there was
that the one with the guy that looked like a Nazi version of Inspector Gadget? Like he was wearing like a German. Yeah, his name was Brocken. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there was that guy, and then there was also a cat burglar whose name
This
was
sounds awful.
Whose name was Larson.
Yeah.
Which
Was
now
it fun? Was it a fun game?
It was fun because it was so stupid.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the one that had the guy that was like Rasputin?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he would like he was almost like Dalsim, but instead of just stretching his arms and legs, they would become like really big. Like he hit you with this gigantic fist all
He
of a
didn't
sudden.
hit you with his 11-inch penis.
Well, he
was
should
this
have.
Like the
pre-Dalsum, though? Are you saying this was...
No, this was like a ripoff.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
this-
I played that. I think I played that game at the roller rink when I was 8.
Wow.
I didn't do any roller skating. I spent all my time playing
Nice.
That's the way to do
stupid
it.
game.
Eternal Champions?
Eternal Champions.
Wow.
I looked it up today because I was like, oh, that game was terrible. And I looked it up and I looked at the characters and I was like, oh, the cat burglar's name is Larson.
And
like
wasn't
larceny.
there a Viking-looking
Fuck
guy,
you.
too? Wasn't there a Viking-looking guy?
There was like a half lion, I think, like a lion man. It was basically just like a
Mantar?
terrible. It was like Mantar. It was a terrible. It was a terrible
It might have
ripoff
been a
of both
different-
Street Fighter and Mortal
It might have
Kombat.
been a different game, but I think it sounds very familiar because it's just inane.
Do y'all remember this? One of the reasons Sega started to slip in the 16-bit race was that
It didn't have Mario Paint.
well, no, the original Genesis controller only had 3 buttons, but the Super Nintendo had enough buttons so that you could do a proper version of Street Fighter.
Right.
And the Sega one didn't have enough buttons for that stuff, so they had to come out with the 6-button controller, and everybody had to get a new controller to play that.
Where you had to
stuff.
press
wow.
start to toggle
to
it.
switch between the two.
Well,
Yeah,
that was actually part of the problem with this. I basically just went through a list of all the Sega Genesis games, and I was just like, oh, I had that one, and then one just popped out at me. I think these two life disappointments happened probably about the same year. One of them was they announced they were coming out with a movie version of Super Mario Brothers.
Oh,
Right? And when they announced it, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait. And I went and saw that movie. And I think it was the first time I had ever been disappointed by a film, just in general. Because at the time, when you're a kid, you go to the movie
it's hard
theater.
To get disappointed.
Yeah.
It's just-
You go to the movie theater. You're just whatever is going to entertain you. That was the first one where I was like, no, I reject this out of hand.
Couldn't Dennis Hopper have just made Easy Rider 2 or something like that?
There was that, and then I think either that year or maybe 2 years later at the most, they announced that, and this was when PlayStation was out. This is 1996. So Sega Genesis is like in its death throes, and just as a last resort, they put out something called Sonic 3D Blast.
If you should see an eerie gyration of light, move away. You may be witnessing the blast attack.
Play Sonic 3D Blast on Sega Channel, the only cable channel with unlimited play of over 70 games a month. Call your cable company to get hooked in.
What's weird about Sonic 3D Blast is that they put it out on Sega Genesis and Sega Saturn. Like, the fact that you can get the same game on both platforms does not speak highly of
but
your new
listen to
platform.
this. Listen to this. For upcoming next-gen consoles, some of the most exciting games I'm looking forward to playing, like Watch Dogs and Ghosts, Call of Duty Ghosts, apparently are coming out for both like PS3 and PS4. And
okay.
and that's happening also for Xbox. And I really don't get, or I don't ever remember that happening in the past. I guess it's a thing, but like, I would only want to play. Have you been like seeing what these games are looking like and everything?
Well, are you saying they come out for 2 different consoles?
I'm saying that like Call of Duty Ghost is coming out for PS3 and PS4.
Well, There was like a liminal era before.
They talked about an NES version of Street Fighter for a while.
Yeah,
that was like a rumor.
During that era when Super Nintendo first came out, not everybody had it yet. There was some games like Rampart and things that had both an 8-bit and a 16-bit version.
I guess you got to satisfy both customers. Yeah. I would just rather hold off and get the best version of the game possible.
Well, the thing I wanted, the thing that, again, I read this today was that apparently the promotion for Sonic 3D Blast was Sega. It was like whoever, I don't know. They basically, I guess, had competitions to like see who was the best Sonic 3D Blast player. And like the 4 best players would be flown to San Francisco, and they were going to have a tournament on Alcatraz for no fucking reason.
All right.
I was like, you're just going to get 4
That's
kids,
awesome.
put them on Alcatraz, and make them play this horrible fucking game.
Alcatraz makes everything sound cooler, you know?
It was, well, what's fucking crazy is like, if you ever played that game, and I actually was completely unaware that they made a 6-button Genesis controller. I was just stuck with the 3-button. I rented that game like the day it came out, and it was this weird, like, isometric, I guess is the word, like kind of an above view. And you're trying to do that with a D-pad and 3 buttons.
Oh, it's like Marble Madness, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
They had something like that in one of the Sonic games, like Sonic Spinball, or not Sonic Spinball, but Sonic and Knuckles. They had something like that, and it blew ass.
Well, no. In the Sonic games, they had the sphere levels, where you would get the bonus level, and it was just you were just on a sphere popping balloons.
You know what
I
always hated about that? If you beat the game without getting all them crystals in the sphere level, you didn't get the real ending.
Right.
So it was almost like the bonus level was the real game, and the actual levels might as well have been the bonus.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle. Did you ever play that?
Yeah.
That was one of Alex Kidd was one of the, like, Sega was just like trying so hard to get a mascot, right?
It was they had a ton of these in Japan, so they would just release them over and over again. They even had those, so I don't know if anybody remembers the Sega Master System, the Sega 8-bit system.
That was the first one,
I
right?
never played it.
They had Alex Kidd games for that.
Okay.
Which one was Enchanted Castle?
I think that was basically the first Alex Kidd for Sega Genesis. And, I mean, not knowing anything about anything, yeah, I really enjoyed it because it was kind of the same thing as Phantasy Star 2, to where, like, the music was at next level, 16-bit music, and
the colors and
everything. So, yeah, I was really enjoying it.
Was that the one where you played rock, scissors, paper against all your enemies?
Yeah, they had rock, scissors, paper embedded into the game.
Because the Japanese love that game. And they have, like, a really elaborate way they do it. I shit you not. It's
rock,
like they
paper,
do.
scissors?
Yeah, they do rock, scissors, paper, and then on top of that, it's like after you win, then you have to guess which way the other guy is going to look.
Wow.
And there was a game, it was an obscure RPG of the 8-bit Nintendo called, seriously, it's called Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom. And it's an RPG with all vegetables and fruit and shit.
Was it released by Olive Garden or something?
No, it should have been. No, but it was like a Japanese game. Because Japanese like vegetables and shit like that, especially anthropomorphic ones and shit. They got the tomato bank down not too far from here. But anyway, there was parts in it. There was parts in it where you had to do the full rock, scissors, paper against your enemies, including the guess which way the guys kind of look thing.
Wow.
That's fucking insane. That's the craziest shit I've ever heard.
Japanese love that game. They have a really elaborate way of playing it. They love it.
That's pretty incredible. I did not know that. I'm trying to think about other games that were like a little obscure that really defined my Genesis Nintendo.
Well, when did you get your first Nintendo? What was the circumstances?
I did get my Nintendo before Genesis. It was a little later. I remember a lot of other kids had it.
Yeah.
But I did get it, and it was just the standard one that came with Duck Hunt and Mario. That was super fun. But I kind of got it probably 6 months to a year after everyone else got it. And then I was able to start trading games and stuff, and I eventually got into, I think the funnest time I ever had with my Nintendo up there, because I just got into RPGs, was Dragon Warrior 1.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah. Bum, ba-dum, dum, dum,
Killing slime.
Killing metal slime.
That whole
when the
game.
rare slime would pop up, my heart rate was like...
Well, that whole game was like a glorified level up.
Oh, yeah.
You just had to build slime.
It would take forever to buy the axe.
Well, my favorite was when you hit the princess at the end, and you would ask her, like, do you love me? And she'd say yes, and there'd be this happy music that played that was like...
Unbelievable.
I remember when I was a kid, I played Dragon Warrior, and I was bad with video games. So it took me forever to actually get to the point of being good enough to be functional and having it be fun. And I remember the first time I fought a Waverin.
Was a big deal.
Oh, it kicked my ass, dude. It destroyed me.
That was the thing.
I was good with skeletons
Yeah.
and the slime.
The entry level slime.
Well,
Yeah,
that was like,
the ninjas.
You would fight all the little guys, and then you would cross a bridge on another continent, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
enemies would just kick your ass
Yeah.
right out the gate.
And it did
Knights.
feel like when you were crossing the bridge, you were like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This shit's got real.
What is going on right now?
And
Pretty
the
incredible.
abandoned town. The
I never
abandoned
played Dragon
town.
Warrior 2, but I remember hearing about kind of like how
Really long.
it got bigger.
It's really long. Actually, and so's 3. I beat all of them except 4. And 2 and 3 are ridiculously long.
Wow.
In 3, you have to beat the whole game, and then you get transferred to another world, which is all the continents from Dragon Warrior 1. And
Oh
then you
my
got to do a whole
God.
quest in there.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
It's a lot of fun, though, but you've got to, like nowadays, you can give yourself like a month or 2 to get through this
To
thing.
get through it.
Yeah.
Oh, I never beat it, but
That was
Dragon
one of my
Warrior.
defining Nintendo. Really, Dragon Warrior. I mean, when you pop Super Mario 3 in for the first time, I mean that was a defining
Pivotal.
moment. And
Have
then
you ever beat it without the warp whistles?
no, I did. No, I think I always did. I'd never slogged all the way through each one. Was that
long.
the first game to feature like you moving across the map?
It was the first
Yeah.
Mario game to have that.
That
It was the first
so-
one with the map, but the first one, of course, in level 2, you can go up in the ceiling, walk all the way to the different pipes the warp zone that'll
Oh,
warp you to
and
the
just
different
straight
stuff.
up Mario.
You know,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I
There
was
was no
preferred
map.
to
Toot
myself.
on my whistle. and
One
I'll
toot
do
on this whistle will take you to a faraway land.
Toot on my whistle, and I will.
Let me ask you this: you know, Nintendo right now is in big trouble.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's
oh,
in
hell
big trouble.
Yeah.
I live next to a dude. I just lucked out. I moved in next to a guy who is basically just a maniacal gamer. He's got every system. And he lends me games. He's like super into games. But he has stock in Nintendo, and he's talked to me about the dire situation, and it's dire. Basically, the Wii U tanked it. The Wii U has absolutely tanked it.
Really?
And they're not making money. They're way late in the next, as far as like, these next gen consoles are coming out at the end of this year. And there's tons of anticipation for them. They're all sold out on Amazon, each PS4 and Xbox One. And Wii U is just lost. No, it's not even on anyone's mind.
Is it out?
The Wii
been
U,
out.
The Wii U has been out.
See, I didn't even know. I actually just kind of randomly had that thought the other day. I'm like, did that ever come out?
That not only did it come out, but like, I really, after playing Pikmin 3 finally on this game on the Wii U, it did feel magical. Like, oh, this is why Nintendo's a big deal, because games like no one's doing games like this. It does really feel magical, but like, that's the only thing. And the problem is that when we came out, no one was doing like simple fun games on their phones. But now that like simple fun element, people are doing on their iPads and their phones.
Yeah.
So kids aren't like, I need a Wii U to like do this pad, the interactive thing, whatever. And I really am fearing for Nintendo because I don't think Wii U's going to happen. I don't think they're going to have a reemergence with this system.
Well, sometimes they come out with a Zelda, and that usually saves their ass.
I hope.
The promise.
I hope so too.
The promise of Wii, to me, as soon as I heard what it was and what it was supposed to do, is like, oh, they're gonna have like an amazing Star Wars game with lightsaber, like, right? Like, that seems like the most logical thing. Like, if they had a Star Wars game,
were you
with
excited when you heard about it? Were you pumped? I remember there was so much anticipation.
the first
Wii.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was like, oh, it's motion controlled. Like, they're gonna have an amazing Star Wars game. That's all I want in life is an amazing Star Wars game, and they never delivered that, as far to my knowledge.
There was supposed to be, and I think it got canceled because there was a shift in who owns the company that buys and makes the Star Wars games. But I saw clips from it, and it looks incredible. There's a new Star Wars game that kind of looks like an open world GTA thing. I think it's frozen, but if it gets developed, it looked incredible.
Yeah.
And it's essentially like a GTA kind of format.
Yeah, that would be great.
You should look it up. It's really, really incredible.
And if they had that on Wii or Kinect or whatever, you could move the lightsaber around with you. That's what I've wanted since I was a kid, was to have a...
Did they have that? Did they come out with that?
I think they maybe came out with a game that featured a lightsaber, but it wasn't remarkable,
I'm really surprised they didn't.
That seems like the only selling point to me.
Cool with
really.
WarioWare, where you have those games where you can like pick your nose and
Oh, that's like kind of shit you play high.
so great. I don't even need pot.
Isn't it interesting that despite how hard the Wii hit, instead of like changing the game forever, it felt like this. I don't know if it was gimmicky because it was legit, but like if we had that moment. But then we all just got back into classic console gaming with Xbox, and now both consoles coming out, PS4 and Xbox One, are just better versions of the same thing. So like it's like innovate. It's weird. It's like we don't want the innovation almost. It's like
I don't play classic console games. Actually, the last classic console that I owned was a Sega Genesis.
Yeah. So the last
I went straight to Wii, and I love Wii because it's just goofy and easy, and it has 2 buttons.
You don't play Xbox 360?
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
You?
The most modern thing I had was a secondhand N64.
I had a PlayStation 2
Other
that
than
was
the Wii.
stolen out of my apartment.
No one here is playing current games?
Nope.
No,
What?
I just don't have the time.
What?
I'd like to, but it's so long, and I just don't have the time.
My friend had a PlayStation 2 in his murdered out Honda Accord.
Oh,
he had the
fun,
PlayStation 2 up in the ride.
Nice.
And it was a Lorenzo kid.
Wow.
I had like I said, I had a PlayStation 2, and somebody, this is when I was still in Alabama, somebody kicked down the door of my apartment and stole my PlayStation 2.
No
And I was
way.
like, well, that's it. Because at the time, like, I'd reached this sort of dead end with gaming because the only games I had and the only games I liked were Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and then Lego Star Wars. That was it. I
Gotcha.
love those games. Other than that, I don't have the patience. Like, because I like Lego Star Wars because it's easy, and I like Grand Theft Auto because I don't have to do anything. Like, I've just completely lost the patience to actually follow a story, and it's, That said,
story is becoming a huge part of contemporary games.
Exactly.
And it's awesome.
And there's stuff that I find cool, but it's also just a matter of like I just can't. I don't have the time.
Yeah.
And also I don't have a system. Like my next door neighbor got the new Grand Theft Auto game, and by the way, you can totally go to Intelligentsia and just shoot hipsters. Like that's
nice.
one of the missions.
I want to tell you.
I wish they did that with birds.
You could take that to. You could take a bazooka to the Comedy Store.
That's exactly.
I bought it a little while ago, and I am playing it, but I'm not. I still play, but it takes me a long time because I'm trying to be productive too. I have to pick and choose my moments.
Right.
The games are so long now, but I mean, they're so elaborate, the stuff they could do. I'd actually love to play the new games. I just don't really have the time.
Yeah, they're nutty. They really.
Also, I live right off of Vermont, right next to Family Arcade, which is a 24-hour arcade where you go there in the middle of the night. And they just have a murderer's row of quarter games for they have the Ninja Turtles game, they have like Pac-Man, Galaga, 1942, all that stuff, and then also just children selling drugs.
Do they got a
Yeah.
point blank
Everywhere.
game in there?
I have been there. It's rough.
Just
Do
like
they got a point blank machine? I've been looking for one of them.
I don't know if they have point. They definitely have
I forget.
Time
I forget.
Crisis.
I forget.
Yeah, but I'm specifically looking for point blank.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
those are
I
the ones
forget.
I know. But the last time I was there, there was totally just two 15-year-olds. One of them handed the other one a giant wad of money, and the other one handed him a brown paper bag.
Aren't they looking at the quarter machines? William Sessions, head of the FBI, says, "Say no to drugs." Right on the machine. Right on the machine. It's a blue screen.
It's like
Say no to drugs. William Sessions,
And they-
FBI.
They should put a fucking narc game up in there.
Yeah.
So they'll see the consequences.
Yeah.
Well, they got the Daytona 500 game, which is fun.
Is that the
They
one
have
that
the
goes
most
Daytona?
recent Street Fighter too. They have the sit-down ones where
Yeah, they
I
actually.
forget what it is by
Tell
now.
me
Street
more.
Fighter 6 or something.
Yeah, they have like recent stuff
What is
too.
this
And
Street Fighter 6 you're talking
what's
about?
What's fun about that place is that they have the recent shit, which there's always a line for. But then there's just a row of pinball machines and a row
Yeah,
of good old
yeah, there's
arcade
old
games,
school.
and those are the cheapest ones. So that's like what I'm interested
Have
in.
y'all not been to the barcade on like Western?
Oh yeah, Blipsy.
Yeah.
No, I still haven't.
That's got
I
like
haven't,
Double
I haven't.
Dragon. That's
You
got
were from New York. Did you
Yeah.
go to Barcade
Yeah.
very
I
much?
did go to Barcade in Brooklyn, and it was really fun.
It was.
It was really fun. Yeah.
Although it was terrible to have to fight people to get into
Wait, I'll
them.
tell you-
Like on a Saturday night, the lines that would form around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would get stuck playing like Tapper or something like that because nobody would want to play Tapper. Tapper's awesome.
The fuck is Tapper?
It was a game where you're a bartender.
Yeah, you're a bartender and you have
and you're waiting the
a
beers
draft deal.
Never mind,
draft
it's fun.
handle and you
fun.
shoot beers out.
I'll tell you, don't fuck any of that
better
shit.
than Burger Time.
I was just about to say
I've
it's
been a
the
Fun
adult
Spot.
burger time.
Yeah.
Huh?
You know Fun Spot? The one up in New Hampshire? the
that's
King of Kong and
the
all that
one
shit?
featured in King of
That's
Kong.
the one to
Yeah.
go to. They got Cheyenne.
used to go there when I was a kid.
Wow.
It was the shit.
I would
It still is.
I would get so many skee ball tickets.
Shit, my brother played a bunch of skee ball once and got the Dusty Rhodes action figure.
Wow.
Shittiest game. What's the shittiest? Because you were mentioning Shaq Fu, and
Yeah.
I think that's something
Yeah,
that deserves its own.
You know, it might need a whole podcast to go into it.
Shaq
but
Fu.
Just
We
Shaquille O'Neal
we
in
just have a
general.
Shaq Fu tournament. or
Jesus
something
Christ.
Like that.
Okay, so yeah, they had it on Super Nintendo and on Sega Genesis. I believe it came out in 1994 or 5, and you practice Shakido, which is the ancient art of Shaq fighting people in a black t-shirt. That's like my favorite part is the cover of Shaq Fu. He's just wearing a fucking t-shirt. He's not even wearing like a robe or any sort of,
Outfit
martial
from
arts
Kazam or something
related
like that.
it would behoove him to get some sort of at least silk with some Chinese symbols on it, Japanese symbols, something related to martial arts. He's just wearing like his workout clothes on the cover just because he fucking can. And if I remember correctly, you have like 6 characters to choose from or whatever, and they're all some version of Shaq.
Yeah.
Like there's Diesel. There's like a couple others.
Like
Shaq
he's like
from
he's a
Steel, Shaq from Blue Chips.
It's like he's a Hindu god or something, and he has all these different incarnations.
Exactly, yeah, the Vishnu Shack, what have you. But yeah,
I played it once.
See, I played it
rented
once too. I rented it back in the day.
Horrible.
My Kroger, my grocery store, used to have a little video rental section. I rented Shaq Fu, and it was one of those where I was like, I played it, and it was still daylight out, so I felt it was all right to be like, Mom, can we please go back to Kroger so I can get another game? Like, this is such a piece of shit.
That's another renting games. That's another bygone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
renting games, yeah. No,
Renting games.
everybody just, what do? Download them now?
I didn't know people didn't rent them no more. I thought
Well,
that was
nobody
the only-
rents anything anymore.
Well, yeah, I
It's-
thought that was the only thing that even kept like anything
can
like a
rent stuff from,
blockbuster
like, the-
vestigially in
Like
business.
the Redbox?
They have like, yeah, Redbox has
Redbox
games.
has
Oh,
games.
you can Redbox games.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
But that's it.
I
that's
used
not
to
the
love the
same.
supermarket video stores.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
one of the ways I started my collection was when the 8-bit Nintendo was going out of style. We just go to every supermarket and little video store we could find, and they were just selling off all the 8-bits.
Yep.
So we just bought them up that way.
Yep.
And then your friends would just give you theirs, or just charge you like a couple of dollars for them.
Yard
you
sales,
could get a lot
man.
of games.
That was my thing, is yard sales. Just would
If you-
get weird shit like Rygar,
Oh yeah,
Fist of the North Star.
yeah. That was based off of anime.
Little Nemo.
Yeah, Little Nemo, the Dream Master, Capcom. If
That
you will.
one, yeah. I'm trying to
Rygar
remember
was where you had
other
the
ones.
shield.
Yeah, and that spinning thing.
That was
Yeah.
fun. Was a fun one.
It was, and it was all those crazy lands you would go to, like Jarlath and all that shit like
I
that.
remember that. Yeah, I felt that was a fun one when I was playing. I was like, oh, this is really fun. Let me ask you about this game. If it felt like it was a little magical, because I felt it was. Master Blaster.
I had
Oh,
that.
that was very big. Do you know what always bothered
That was
me?
my nickname as a kid, by the way.
Well, was that-
when I was a baby?
Was it because of
I would-
that, or was it because of the thing in Thunderdome now?
Well, no. When I was like 1, I was born. Well, I was a very skinny kid, and my legs were too skinny for the diapers. And whenever I did a number 2,
Master
that's
Blaster.
when the Master Blaster came.
That's beautiful.
I remember it was like cartoony and like you could jump out of the tank.
Yeah, there was like a
So
side-scrolling level with the tank, and then there was like an above, like
Well-
you looking like a Zelda perspective. But you know what bothered me in that?
The tank was like constantly hydroplaning. Like it was that kind of physics where like it was just
Yeah,
always
but-
out of
no,
control.
But that game bugged the hell out of me because if you watched a little cinema at the beginning, the kid has a pet frog and the pet frog jumps into a hole and he goes down there after him. But then midway through the game, he meets the frog who's now mutated into a giant frog and fights him. And then the game keeps going. You would think that like it would have been over after that because he went in there for the frog in the first place. So it didn't make much sense to me.
So his friendly pet frog goes to the warp hole
And becomes the
evil,
enemy. Yeah.
and then midway through you kill him.
And then you keep going instead of like, well, I guess that sucks. I'm going to go back
Do you remember
and go to
just-
therapy or something.
You're like,
Remember what happens Do you remember what happens in the end, or what?
I don't remember the boss at the end. I don't know if I ever beat it. I just remember you fought the frog about midway through.
Okay.
You kill your own friend.
Yeah.
Halfway through.
I mean, shit.
What a weird, what a tough thing to do. I don't remember that. What a hard. I don't like hearing about that. Jesus.
It always kind of bugged me too, and it was just illogical. Why does the game continue? There's no story.
What
now.
about having the frog like mutate into the tank you use, and then you could like defeat shit
That
together?
would be a good
or
idea. Didn't Little Nemo have a frog? Little Nemo, the Dream Master, didn't that have a frog?
I don't
too?
know. Like I'm saying, when I got these weird yard sale games, it was like my level of patience with games has never changed. It's always like, this better be fun out of the fucking gate, or I'm done.
Well, Little Nemo had a good rep because it was when Capcom was riding high with
Street Fighter and stuff.
No,
yeah.
it was before that a little bit. It was like with Mega Man and those Disney games.
Yeah.
And so Capcom became like one of those systems to watch for. And because the graphics were good in that and the theme was kind of artistic, being based off that old turn of the century comic strip, people were like, oh, well, let's look out for this one. But then when you actually played it, it wasn't that much fun.
Isn't that great?
I wasn't a fan of the Konami. I was a Capcom guy. Didn't like the Konami.
Oh, Konami did, back to my original one, Zombies Ate My Neighbors. And the thing I wanted to say about Zombies Ate My Neighbors is that if any of you played this game, it's okay.
No,
so
no,
basically, it's really fun. Like I wanted, like to this day, like I played it maybe a year ago. Somebody downloaded it on their Wii. It still holds up as being really fucking fun because you're basically just going around and killing, mummies, werewolves, zombies, creature from the Black Lagoon. Like every horror character is representative in some way. And there's like even like a little evil doll like Chucky with a little axe or some shit. And
this was NES?
No, this was Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo.
Okay.
And but anyway, the thing about it though is it's a 2-player game, and at the beginning it shows you your two characters, right? And one of them is a guy named Zeke who is wearing a skull t-shirt and 3D glasses. And he has blonde hair that's spiked up straight. And the other one is a girl who I believe was named Carmen. And the thing that was fucked up about it was that objectively the girl character was not as good as the dude was faster. He could fucking shoot better. So it became this like weird sexist like hole you fell into.
Yeah.
Because everybody was like, I call the boy.
It's not like Mario 2 where you pick the Princess Toadstool
and she could fucking
just
That was the best
kick
one.
everyone's
It'd get you
ass.
through that awful level 6 there where you had to go, that was up in the air and you had to
jump
ride
on
on
the
the birds and
birds,
everything.
Yeah. The other thing about the game that was really fun was a couple levels where you had to fight a gigantic baby.
What?
Yeah, because the goal of the game was basically like monsters have overtaken this world. You just have to like search for these scared victims and stuff, and you just have to save them one by one. But the son of a bitch about the giant baby level was the giant baby was the only victim you got to save. So you had to like first kill him, and then he would shrink down, and then you could save him.
Well, that's good. They should have had that in Master Blaster.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, you should have been ultimately able to save the toad. But one last thing about Zombies Ate My Neighbors is
Go
that
for it.
all the weapons were either like food or squirt guns or fucking tomatoes, like shit that's not necessarily lethal. Like the only way to kill, like a werewolf, for instance, is with the silverware. So you just threw a fork and a knife at him.
Werewolf.
Yeah, and then there was cans of soda. Shit like that.
Is this one on the
super
Wii
fun.
now? to
It's on.
download?
You can download it on the Wii. It's
I
great.
gotta do that right
I'm telling
away.
you, I would drop everything and play it right fuck now because it's great.
So, David, what's your crappiest old game?
Was there a Predator video game where you played Arnold Schwarzenegger and it was a platformer?
I think that there was a really terrible Total Recall game.
My friend
It went
Chad
through that,
had
right?
the Predator game
Okay, there we go.
on NES, and
Okay.
it was Predator, and then I remember he also had the Rocketeer game.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember Predator. There was just so much obviously anticipation because this unbelievable movie is just the coolest movie ever.
Oh yeah.
And I think the game really sucked, and I played through it just because you just play through. But man, that was a tough one. I think what sucked actually was that it always sucks when it doesn't matter the graphics or whatever, but it's like when you start including elements that have nothing to do with the universe that the content is in. Like I think in this game you end up like having to collect like blue crystals or I forget what it was, but like I remember thinking like this wasn't.
Oh yeah,
this is like nothing to do.
It's like the Friday the 13th game. You're just fighting abominable snowmen. Like you're fighting little Bigfoots that would just emerge out of the ground for no reason.
I remember a lot of people were disappointed with the Batman game they had because you would just fight these enemies that weren't in the movie or anything. It was just
really
like
bad
random enemies that could be in any game.
Not good. You mentioned you mentioned your worst game?
No. For NES, my worst game is one called The Adventures of Bayou Billy.
Oh, that game was
I
hard as
remember
shit.
that. Was it alligators and?
Yeah, and I'd gotten it from because I always would get NES games from like my aunts and uncles, and they didn't know anything about you, and they probably didn't know much about the games themselves, so they just kind of shot blind. Or went to the guy at Toys R Us and was like, "Oh, what's good?" And they just are like, "Oh, we got tons of copies of this." So, Adventures of Bayou Billy, he's like a hack version of Crocodile Dundee.
Oh, perfect.
Yep. And it's a Konami game. And
Who lives in New Orleans?
He lives in New Orleans. It's a Konami game, so everybody looks like ballerinas. Everybody looks like ballerina. It doesn't matter if it's Blades of Steel, to a degree, in Contra.
Castlevania.
Yeah, everybody looks like kind of like they're wearing ballet like slippers. The beginning of it, I think they blew all of the memory of the game because when you start out, it has the title screen, and then in a synthesized voice, it just goes, "The Adventures of Bayou Billy." And it's just, that's it. And the music was just like,
you bought this game.
Yeah. The Adventures of Bayou Billy.
And
you waste $50.
Don't deal with this.
The Adventures of Bayou Billy. So it had like all the music
so
was
funny.
like vaguely porno music. It was just like a lot of it's just like really bad. And then it's incredibly difficult. You cannot beat the friggin' thing. And everybody does these like goofy kicks that look like they're doing jazzercise. Everybody looks like they're wearing just unitards and maybe like unitards with Hawaiian shirts. And like they have the dumbest weapons. Like you throw rocks at like some guy that looks like Nasty Boy Sags comes out holding a big ass rock and he's like throwing it at you. And it's impossible. And they have a driving component, impossible. A shooting component with the gun, impossible. And the side scroll, get out of here. It's terrible.
You know what's good kind of about the way we're going in that the bad thing about like AAA titles and where gaming's going nowadays is that it's just kind of like where movies are, where like it's either a tentpole blockbuster or you don't have a chance to produce a game. So you either make you're either producing something like Modern Warfare or you're doing like phone games. It's like there's no in between. And in a way that's bad because there's not a huge it's kind of tougher to just go like find a modern cool video game it's got to be a huge production. But you really don't have many you can't be a bad game anymore because the stakes are so high, the budgets are so high.
Unless you're licensed.
Unless
it's like a movie game, which
licenses would dog, man.
Yeah.
Especially in like the 8-bit era.
Well, there's just like I was talking about this to somebody else. Like, there's just not that. I mean, like, there's not that many good, games that were based on movies. Like, I can really think of very few. There's
Goonies 2
bad
was
movies
okay.
based off of games as well.
There was some
it
decent
goes both
movies.
ways.
There was some movies that got games that were just horrible, like that Dracula movie. Bram Stoker's Dracula had a horrible Nintendo game. Yeah.
Did they make an interview with the vampire game?
No, I don't think they did. They did make a game out of Platoon, if you can believe that, though.
What?
Yeah. It was a pain in the ass, too, because every time it died, it would say, "Your history" at the end. Like it was trying to do some kind of anti-war thing.
Yeah, the movies, the licensing is bad. But, I mean, right now, in general, it's just a great time to be a gamer because there are just so many incredible, the latest games are truly incredible. And I mean, I'm playing GTA 5 now, but over the last year, like Borderlands 2 is just one of the most funnest games I've ever played in my life. Have you heard of this title? Borderlands, it's like a desert. It's kind of like an over-the-top, cartoony desert shoot-'em-up game.
No, I don't think I've heard of that.
Absolutely
Sounds
incredible. Super fun. The newest Tomb Raider came out a while ago, 6
I was
7
never
months
into
ago.
that series. It kind of hit when I was not into modern games at the time.
That game made a kid we all knew like pee on himself.
You mean when he was originally playing the old Tomb Raider?
The original Tomb Raider, whenever that came out on PlayStation, my friend had a PlayStation. It was a
we all know him.
It was a sleepover scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's hanging out, and then we're playing Tomb Raider, and it gets to the part with the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I don't remember if that's Tomb Raider 1 or 2. I think 1. It gets to that part, and this kid who was sleeping over is just like, I'm gonna be right back. And then the next person who went to the bathroom to pee, there was just a diaper filled with piss in the fucking. And this kid was like 6 or 7.
Wow.
I
hope he's not listening now.
Is the diaperer or the spotter of the diaper?
Okay, so I don't know. I should come up with names or something. It's me.
Uh-huh.
It's my friend. It's
okay.
It's his next door neighbor, my acquaintance.
Okay,
so I'm playing the game. T-Rex. Friend is watching. Acquaintance is watching.
Yeah.
Acquaintance excuses himself.
Okay.
Comes back as if nothing happened. Friend excuses himself. Comes back. Why is there a fucking diaper filled with piss in my trash can?
Wow.
Woo. 1996, everybody. Weird times.
Back in the day, they didn't make diapers for big kids like that. You had to piss your pants like a man.
This kid did. I actually, this same kid, now that I'm thinking about it, this same kid, maybe a good 3 or 4 years later, we're all like playing capture the flag, and we're all like taking a break. You know, the flag has been captured. We're all standing around, and he's wearing like, you know, heather gray sweatpants, and we're all standing around just like, man, that was a hell of a game of capture the flag.
And those are real sweatpants. Heather gray is real sweatpants.
Yeah,
like the black sweatpants.
Yeah,
they're a friggin' karate gi.
No,
all right,
heather gray, and we're all standing around like, what a crazy game of capture the flag that was. And then all of a sudden, it just starts running down his leg.
Wow.
We're all like, dude, are
nuts.
you peeing in your pants right now? And
how old were you at this time?
I think I was probably 8 or 9, and he was probably 7 or 8.
I peed my pants in 6th grade.
But here was his excuse, though.
Congratulations.
It was running down his leg, and we're all like, dude, what the fuck? And he goes, what do you expect? I'm not wearing underwear. I'm like, that wouldn't make a difference.
That could be sexy in the right context.
It's the loss of control.
Yeah, he was so pumped about.
Why wouldn't he just use?
I ran out of hall passes.
Why wouldn't he just use the bathroom?
I don't know. I have no explanation for this.
Bladder issue.
I think he may have a bladder issue. The
Okay.
only explanation. It's not even an explanation. He had 3 nipples. I know that. Wow. This is a weird kid.
So did that guy. So did the Christopher Lee guy in that James Bond movie, and he was badass. Remember that one?
Well, he had 3 nipples. Or
yeah,
he
man
peed
with a golden
himself?
gun. Remember that? He had a superfluous nipple.
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg has a superfluous nipple. He's badass.
I did not know that.
I did not know that either. He's always not wearing a shirt in them movies.
Check it out. His old Calvin Klein ads. Got a third nipple.
I think they would have airbrushed that out.
Yep.
Wow. Marky Mark
was on a skin
Marky
tag or
Mark performed at my girlfriend's school.
Jesus.
Yeah. I think from what I remember, her friend loved Marky Mark. She had a big crush on Marky Mark, and then she saw him, and the crush was over because he was so short. She's like, he's too short.
She's a hide hole.
It's like, oh my God, you're like 12.
I don't know, man. I was thinking, like, do they still do weird contests?
Well, I
and
was
shit?
going to ask you.
We had that.
Did they ever actually hold that contest at Alcatraz
Yeah,
with the kids in a video game?
It said that they just held it there. I assume that meant.
Did it actually happen?
I assume that it happened. That thing I was telling you about the Sonic. Yeah, they had a contest. And reading up on that reminded me of something else weird. Where at some point in like the late '90s, Nickelodeon was like. He was like, hey, like if it was something having to do like with Happy Meals, like you would win a golden ticket or something, and the prize if you won the McDonald's Nickelodeon cross promotion was that you got to have a party at your local McDonald's, which featured a video phone call from President Bill Clinton.
Wow.
That was the prize, and I'm like, that isn't shit now. At the time, they would have to, like back up a fucking pickup truck to unload a video phone. But
So since you're from Florida, did you have the magazine sale at your high school?
Yeah.
Was it the annoying Southern lady that would just be like, if you sell 10,
Oh, man, I don't remember the actual people hosting it. But I do remember now the fundraisers and the
Did you have one where it had like a special appearance if you sold enough magazines?
No,
or
I just
some-
remember there being these like huge prizes that seemed so amazing if you would actually.
Special appearance by 2 Live Crew.
We had a special appearance if we sold enough magazines collectively that this just crap boy band. I cannot find a trace of them anywhere on the internet, but this crap boy band called Triple Deep would show up.
Oh, God.
There was 5 of them.
That's fucking...
But they were called Triple Deep to the point where there was this kid named Mikkel that was just walking around to the teachers and was like, "Hey, Miss Gander, are you excited for the Triple Deep throat?" And they would just be like, "What?" But Triple Deep came, and they were just like, they were like a Spinal Tap version of boy bands. And we're from Florida, so boy bands were the big export from Florida.
Everywhere,
yeah.
And Triple Deep came, and they were awful. They were really bad. And somebody asked them why they were called Triple Deep, and the one that was the bad boy that had like the drawn-on beard, and the spiky frosted tip hair, and the sleeveless vest came up. Black Jinkos, just like, we're Triple Deep. We call Triple Deep because we're off the Chizane.
Wow,
That's
man.
it. That's the only explanation, because they're off the Chizane.
Wow, man.
Oh, God.
Oh.
Jesus.
Insanity.
Yeah.
The man has a way with words. There's no
He's
doubt
off
about
the
that.
I can't find any trace of Triple Deep.
Not nowhere. It's not
Nowhere.
even on YouTube. Or
Nothing.
something. Shit. I guess they're off the Chizane, so you can't find them. They're off the internet, too.
Yeah.
what's your greatest gaming moment? What's your...
I'm walking around. I'm yet to have the N64. I'm walking around Target every now and then, or they have it installed. It's kind of new. I'm looking at it. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. They've got Mario 64 up.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
It's amazing. Yeah.
A couple days later, and this is out of nowhere, I just don't know what happened. Just out of nowhere, Dad shows up with N64. He just bought it without telling me. And it was just, I go into like a fugue state. I just go nuts.
Are you the kid in the video?
It's an N64! I was the kid in the video. I mean,
Nice.
I'm losing it. I throw it in, and then I would just say that playing and defeating Mario 64 while like being able to talk about it with my friends was just the most incredible gaming experience. I would say Mario 64 was like a mind blower. Would you say Mario 64? That was like a game changing game.
Oh, I'd go with that. Yeah, because there was the first like big 3D.
That was the first leap where like it was 3D.
Or was Tomb Raider before?
I never played the Tomb Raider series until the latest one.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just know that Mario 64, like, I was like entranced into a magical place.
Yeah. Mine with N64 it was Shadows of the Empire, because I'm a fucking Star Wars fan, die
Gotcha.
hard, and that was the shit. Got to
Actually,
fight
if you go to
IG-88.
N64 Star Wars, I thought Rogue Squadron.
Rogue Squadron
better.
was great too.
But would give you motion sickness.
So there's that sentimental. For me, the big thing was that it was never knowing my dad would ever do that. I didn't even think he was a good dad, but like he would yell at me for playing games too much.
Yeah.
So I would never suspect that out of nowhere.
Just get that.
And then he just bought it in, and I was able to play it. So I think playing that game was probably one of the best.
So what was your...
So what was yours of us?
Yeah, but my all right, so my friend would always play. His little brother would always just be behind watching if it was a fighting game, and I happened to, best my friend in combat. He would just turn around and just start beating the shit out of his little brother with the controller. Like, it wasn't even me.
Like he's a fucking supervillain or something.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
the
it's like
thing,
a
'cause-
minion that just beat
No,
the shit
straight
out.
up, like, because he was his Virgil, like he was the $1 Million Man. That guy, every once in a while you catch a DDT because the $1 Million Man wasn't what he was supposed to be.
Everybody's got a price. Everybody's gonna pay.
How can people find you online, Mr. Cope?
You're going to want to immediately go to davidcope.me. M-E.
Right.
Yep. I got a bunch of stuff up there. A link to The Call of the Blade, which is my gaming review web series.
obviously get you guys on ASAP and do something fun. I started to wanted to do it every Wednesday, but it didn't happen. So I just do it whenever I can.
Yeah.
It's just real. It's basically just fun, dumb sketch comedy wrapped up in game reviews. And then, that's it. That's where my webpage is at. That's what I do.
You on Twitter?
I am on Twitter as David is Cope.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Fun time,
buddy. We'll see you next time.
It's game over time, Daddy.
Yeah.
Game over.
Eastmost Peninsula
winner.
is the secret, Daddy.
Did down go dislike
Smoke.
smoke?
Dig
A
dog
winner
is
A winner is you. Good night. A winner is you.
Thank you.
David's left the room.
David left the room.
I hope we don't find a diaper in the fucking trash.
The Goods from the Woods is mixed and edited by me, Rivers Langley, and distributed by Westcast Network. Our theme song is composed by DJ Smiles. You can find him online at djsmiles.net.